Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Second City podcast. My name is Daniel Sketchley.
And I'm Callum Byrne.
Thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate it as we hurtle towards the end of the season. Obviously, Blues didn't play this week because our season tragically has ended. But Villa played two huge games this week, so we're going to get into all of that, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the other things that have gone on in the West Midlands as well, with West Brom and Solihull Moors this week, and so on. But first of all, Cal, how are you? How are you keeping?
Not too bad, thanks, Dan. I'm really tired today. I went to Villa Park last night. Stayed. Obviously, it's the last home game of the season, so lap of appreciation in the rain. Got back really late, up for work this morning. So I feel a bit. It's almost like feeling jet lagged today, but we're here.
Yeah, fair enough, man. Fair enough. I can imagine. Emotionally drained as well as
Yeah,
physically, I would imagine. Cool.
yeah.
Shall we get into what we're wearing then, as a start, what we always do?
Well, I was going to say, Dan, before we get into what we're wearing, I've got a fun little quiz for you. This probably won't work very well for those who are listening on Spotify because it's going to be very visual, but we'll try and make it work. So, obviously, as we mentioned on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, it was my dad's 60th. And so here my mum went to Prague for a nice few days away, and they bought me an Aston Villa related gift from a market in Prague. So, which is a Aston Villa Russian doll set. And so you've now got to guess the player that
Yeah, just by looking at it.
just by looking at it. So
All right. Okay. All right. So for those listening, it's BK8 sponsor, so it must be fairly new.
it's the current season of
Oh, okay,
players.
okay. Oh,
And
okay.
so I think there's
Oh,
5 or 6 here, and they're all like Robin Olsen and like Callum Chambers, aren't them? So who do you think
I
that is?
honestly don't. I don't know. It doesn't look like him, but Tielemans maybe.
Oh, it's not a bad shout. It was, of course, Ollie Watkins.
Well, I thought he might be near the end because he's like kind of in the star man.
This one might be easier.
I don't know. I'm really bad with like
It's a defender
uh,
in the
uh,
England squad.
Ming Konza.
Konza.
Yeah,
We've also got the Polish Cafu,
Ming.
Slough's finest,
I mean, it's probably Matty Cash. Thanks to
Matty
the
Cash.
yeah.
Oh, someone's gone. They've got
Is
one of them's run away.
that John McGinn?
That is John McGinn.
Yeah,
And
wee fella.
the last one.
Real tiny guy.
Yeah.
Douglas Luiz, isn't it?
Oh, close. This one's Leon Bailey.
Oh, okay. That one actually looks like Douglas Luiz. I actually think I'm not very good with like um what players look like in general, other than Blues players. I like retaining what they look like. I'm actually not very good with on the whole. So I actually didn't do too bad there. I think you'd have in a Blues one, but if you did it all time, you'd have to go like the biggest ones would have to be like Zigic. The big one would have to be like one of the
Yeah.
big lads, like Zigic, and then the small go smaller, so like the Obafemi Martins at the very end, like a really short little fella at the end or something.
But would it not be kind of fun though if you did it like if you did it with Villa players for all the years, like Peter Crouch being the really tiny one,
Yeah, I
and
guess,
then like
yeah.
John McGinn being like the really...
Yeah, true. Very true. It's good to know your parents had a great time in Prague
Yeah.
based on their shopping habits. Did they have any for any other teams, or was it just Villa?
I think they had like the typical like your Arsenal, Liverpool,
Oh yeah,
Man United, and I think they went, oh,
Newcastle
who do you?
probably.
I think there was a Newcastle as well. They're like, oh, who do you support? Villa. Yes, we have that one. What?
I remember when we went to where were we? We were in Malta when we went on holiday to Malta, so that'd be 5 years ago. And we went to Gozo, was it Gozo, the little
Yeah,
island that was opposite it? And Gozo, it's absolutely beautiful if you've never been. It's amazing. Um, uh, and we got off it's like a quick ferry over to Gozo, and at the port where we stopped, I think you were wearing a Villa shirt, and
yes, I was. Yeah.
the guy at the booth, I just heard him go. He obviously was like Maltese, and I don't know. I just heard him like saying something about like Birmingham City, like he preferred Birmingham City or something. I was like, my guy. I was like, we're known even over here in the middle of like the middle of the sea. Like that's how big we
Well,
are.
on another tangent, when I was traveling through Peru about 10 years ago, we were in this little, well, it's one of the main villages right near the Amazon called Iquitos, middle of absolute nowhere. You're on the edge of the Amazon River, and outside of our hotel, Birmingham City Supporters Club
Yes,
Peru.
I thought you were going to say that. So
Yeah.
when you started that sentence, so my cousin Pierce went on that trip with you, didn't he?
Yes. Yeah, he
And
did.
I remember
Yeah.
him getting a photo with it. That's when you started talking. I was like, oh, if this isn't about this, I'm gonna have to mention that as well. Yeah, that's classic. That is absolutely brilliant. Anyway, that could be a
What we're
fun
wearing.
podcast, just international
Yeah.
stories we've got. But yeah, anyway, what we're wearing. As always, I wear a blue shirt from years gone by, and Callum tries to guess what year it's from, and then I'll talk a bit about memories from that season, and the same with Callum with the Villa shirt. So who wants to go first this week, Cal?
Do you want to guess mine first this week, Dan?
Yeah, sure. I think I went first last week. For those listening, its sponsor is Meter Copiers.
Yeah, this would have been an Umbro kit.
Oh, right, so
Uh,
it's a remake, is it? It's an away. It's yellow. It's the old badge, obviously, which they've kind of remade now. And then the badge is there's like a version of the badge going over the whole shirt as well,
Yeah,
kind
it's
of
like,
in a faded
yeah,
orangey sort of color. I'm
claret and blue
assuming,
collar.
yeah, I'm assuming because of what's happened in with Villa in Europe this week and so on, and potential Champions League qualification. I'm gonna say it must be early 80s. I'm gonna say it might be it might be the away kit from the year you won it. So I don't know for sure. I'll say 1981, 82, I think.
No, this one isn't actually themed this week. I just picked
Oh, right,
arguably
okay.
my favorite Villa away shirt of all time. I absolutely love this kit. So this is 1991-92
Oh, wow.
third kit, and I
Mhm.
believe it was the third kit the following season as well. So this would have been the year before the start of the Premier League. So the last year of the old First Division. Ron Atkinson was the manager. I think we finished seventh. Quarterfinals of the FA Cup, second round of the League Cup. So, we did qualify for the European Cup Winners' Cup first round for the following year, but can't really tell you too much about the season because it was a good, what, 6 or 7 years before we were born. So, but this shirt, I am dying for a modern remake of. I just think it would just be so brilliant. I really hope Adidas, when that deal eventually gets announced, this is one to make a modern remake of, I think. And yeah, love this shirt. An original, it's worth about 100 to 150 quid, which is why I have a remake. But yeah, great shirt. Remake it, please.
Fair enough. What do you think I've gone for?
I recognize this shirt for a couple of reasons. One, because I just remember the season, but also this is like one of the Adidas templates from that year. So I remember like Brentford had a version of this shirt. Ajax had a version of this shirt, I think. But the reason I remember this shirt is because that's the shirt that you were wearing when Jack Grealish put the ball in the small Heath net and we won 1-0. So that'd be 2018-19 home.
Yeah, that's correct. The reason I again I'm wearing a shirt that I've worn before for the long term, the diehards that have been with us since the beginning. I
Yeah.
wore this on our second episode, I think, second or third episode. So yeah, basically the whole season ago now. I promise I will sort some new kit, some new shirts to wear from next week. I just had a really busy week and stuff, and caught up on me the podcast, and we weren't too sure what day we were doing the podcast on and stuff this week. So but anyway, so I thought I'd wear one I haven't worn in a long time. But yeah, 18-19 home, and I've actually got the away one for those watching just behind me here. This
Oh.
yellow number. Anyone listening? 888 Sport as the sponsor. And probably best known this season for like Shay Adams and Lucas Jukovic up front. I think Shay got 22 goals, I think. I think he was the first Blues player to score 20 plus goals in a season for like, I think it was like 25 years or something mental. I think since like Steve Claridge that might have even been in the old third division as well. Um, and yeah, this year we finished 17th this year, which obviously doesn't sound great. We did have a 9 point deduction though because of overspending and so on from the year before and failing FFP from the years gone by. But this season was actually have a lot of, despite losing the derbies very frustratingly. and we lost away at West Brom as well, which was a brilliant game. Where we all got together and watched it on a Friday night. I
Yeah.
remember. Despite that, that all should equal like a terrible season. But I actually have a lot of really good memories from this season. Like Gary Monk came in, and I think it was just so much better than the chaos of the 2 years previously. And some great games. Like I remember Shea Adams scored twice away at Leeds, and we won 2-1. I think it was our first win of the season. And then Boxing Day, I remember we played Stoke at home. We won 2-0. Omar Bogle scored his only goal for Blues, I think it was. He scored an unreal like volley, half volley, from the edge of the box. Absolutely crazy goal. Jack McGowan scored a great goal that night as well. Yeah, we had a really good winning run around October, November time where I think we won 4 or 5 in a row, and momentum was just really with us. And yeah, it was just a team that, oh, because of the kind of to do with the points deduction as well. We actually had a transfer embargo as well, so we could only sign 5 players for a certain amount of money and so on. But so it kind of gave us this like kind of backs to the wall, like small squad but all together sort of mentality. And yeah, like Lee Camping goal. Yeah, he wasn't like a great keeper sometimes, but I don't know, he was memorable at least, and he was part of that team to me. And Maxime Carlan and Harley Dean, Michael Morrison, Pedersen was great in that first season. Kiftенbeld, excellent. And I remember we played Nottingham. Was it Nottingham Forest? No, sorry, no, it's that Stoke game as well. Where Shea Adams, he didn't score, but I would say it's one of the best individual performances I've seen from a Blues player. He was absolutely immense. Just it was when he kind of really kind of bulked up as a player, and I think that's really stood him in good stead that season. His transition into a really solid Championship player and maybe even lower Premier League player as well. Yeah, Callum like turned his nose up at that,
Not sure about that. Championship,
but,
definitely.
but yeah, a very high end Championship player at the very least. But yeah, so 18-19 home. This one is. Yeah.
Top stuff. So, shall we go into the two matches? I won't talk too much about Olympiacos because it was almost a week ago and very, very depressing. So, I feel like we can kind of, there was a lot riding on this game for a lot of different reasons. One, because we were trying to get to a European final for the first time since we won the European Cup in 1982, but also because I'd already booked my trip to Athens and I'm still going.
Yeah.
So, and also I got tickets for the bloody final.
Yeah, we
So,
almost let it slip last week, didn't we?
yeah,
You were like, maybe keep that quiet. But
yeah. So, Olympiacos Fiorentina, I will be there.
I
But
would take the mick, but like, I would take the mick, but if you said to me you could go to Athens for a few nights, regardless of if there's a football game on, I'd be like, yeah, sure, why not?
yeah.
So not gonna. Although it is quite funny, but
To get to the
even so,
semi-finals
yeah,
and yeah, got in, and we obviously we won the tickets through the UEFA ticket lottery just before the first leg, so to get the tickets and then lose the next two games, yeah, it is what it is. We'll go and have a great time. Guess we're cheering on Olympiacos. I don't know. There's a story either way there. It's an interesting final because you got Fiorentina lost the final to West Ham last year, and Olympiacos in their first ever European final in Athens. It's pretty special night. So that's going to be a lot of fun, even though we're not there. The actual game, my 3-word match review for this will be, where have I written it? Will be early goal costly, because we talked about last week how being 4-2 down, the next goal in the tie was absolutely pivotal. And when we were originally 2-0 down in the first leg, the Ollie Watkins goal swung the momentum back to us and we were able to get back to 2-2. That obviously swung back again towards Olympiacos with the penalty decision, and we weren't able to turn it back. We missed our penalty and we lost 4-2. So the next goal in this tie was going to be important, and we needed to get the momentum back, and we were more than good enough really to go to Olympiacos and probably get a result, even though it was a tall order. And we started really brightly, and yet we conceded within the first 10 minutes. El Arabi, he's the new Rapid Vienna, as far as I'm concerned, Dan. That man will haunt me for a long time. I think he scored 5 goals across the semi-final against us. All right.
yeah.
Haunting stuff. So yeah, we were goal down very early on. Hope, the belief, I really believed that we would go and win the game. I really did. But that belief turned to just hope at 1-0. we had a couple of half chances. The goalkeeper was in very good form to stop Leon Bailey. We just couldn't really get going. We were very threadbare. I think the average age of the bench, excluding the goalkeepers, was like 20 and a half. So we had one senior player, which was Clement Longley, outfielder that is, that was like over the age of 21. So our options were very limited. We had Matty Cash playing as like a winger. We had Diaby out of position. We just had too many players out of position, and we looked like a team that had really run out of legs and run out of steam. And it's a shame that we just kind of ran out of players at just the worst time in the season. It is what it is. We didn't deserve to go through. We probably used all our luck up in the quarterfinal against Lille, to be brutally honest, and we were very lucky to get through that. So it is what it is. I'll give the man of the match to Leon Bailey. He tried to make things happen, but it just wasn't to be on the night for us. Raid F. It's harsh, but we didn't offer much, and we didn't. I would have expected Olympiacos probably expected a tougher game in the second leg than they got. I would imagine.
Yeah. I think against like an Emery team as well, he has such a like standing in obviously the Europa League rather than the Conference League, but
Yeah.
very similar obviously. He has such a reputation. I think for it to kind of end on such a whimper,
Mhm.
yeah, probably a bit of a shock. Certainly was a bit of a surprise to me over the two legs.
Yeah. But fair play to Olympiacos because they won the game in the first leg. Really, they came to Villa Park, and whether the occasion got to the players slightly or as well as Olympiacos being very, very good. They did a job on us there, and it was always going to be very, very difficult. So it is what it is. Disappointing, but we move on. We've got European football next year. Might be the Europa League. So, Emery, Emery knows how to win the Europa League, not the Conference League. Not, he did get Villarreal to a Champions League semi-final a couple of years ago. So, but the Europa League. So we'll see. But we might be in the Champions League. We will know tonight. Annoyingly, as we record, we're about an hour away from Tottenham Manchester City kicking off. So by the time this goes out, we're in the Champions League, or we're not. We'll find out on Sunday. It's Jack Grealish to score the winner tonight for Manchester City, or to bag a draw.
No,
Stranger
thank you.
things have happened. Jack Grealish
No,
securing
thank
Villa
you.
Champions League football, but while playing for
Oh,
Man City, that would be pretty
oh my
bizarre.
God. I'd have to turn off Sky Sports for a year, I think. They just never shut up about it, I think.
So many Villa fans would be deleting tweets from the past 2 years if that happened.
Yeah.
But Liverpool last night. So I was at Villa Park last night. Final home game of the year. Atmosphere very, very good. The fan display with the 3 new flags that you can see up there. Absolutely wicked. Although my flag waving skills terrible. At least when you're like in a stadium,
Could never
because
be
you
my club. Handing out flags could never be my
no,
club. We
you
don't
do the
need flags.
clappers. You get clappers
Oh, we
instead.
don't need clappers anymore either. That's fine.
um, but yeah, we conceded within like a minute. Emi Martinez with a rare mistake. I was trying to think the last time he made a mistake that cost us a goal. And I'm pretty sure that was his first mistake of the year, that like bad mistake that's cost us a goal. And the only other one that comes to mind would be last year, which was against Arsenal when he went up for the corner that he shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
So your goalkeeper's probably going to make at least one mistake a year. It happened. It's just annoying that it happened within a minute of like one of the biggest games of the season, but it is what it is. We got back into the game really well. Ollie Watkins worked very, very hard to get the ball into a box, and Yuri Tielemans back in the team, straight with a goal. I think it's his first league goal at Villa Park. I think his only other goals come away from home. So, great to see him back, and he was a real difference maker. God, if we'd have had him on Thursday night against Olympiacos, we might have had a chance. That I said this a couple of weeks ago. Like I could just watch him in this Emery system. He is thriving so much at the moment, and he's going to be a big player for us next year. And then we went and conceded again. Joe Gomez has never scored a goal in professional football. And he almost scored against us last night. And Martinez saved it, and Cody Gakpo knocked it in. A very close offside. There's a few offsides in the game, offside decisions. So there was that one that stood. There was the Ollie Watkins goal that was disallowed. And then I think there was another one. And all 3 times there was a group of us huddling around a phone watching a stream of the game because obviously you have no idea what's going on in the ground and you're just waiting, watching the referee. So we're all huddling around flipping iPhones trying to watch the game. It's just so bizarre. VAR in the stadium needs working on. You just need to see what they're looking at. Even if you don't like the decision, at least let us see what you're looking at. So yeah, but we then conceded right after half time. So we conceded in the first minute of both halves, which was really frustrating. A free header at the back stick for Kwanzaa. And it's 3-1, probably looked like it was going to be another one of those nights. And yet John Duran comes off the bench, as does Callum Chambers. Jurgen Klopp empties his bench and brings on Darwin Núñez and Dominic Szoboszlai and I can't remember who else he brought on, but he just brought some top quality players on. Callum Chambers came in central midfield, was absolutely unbelievable. He was brilliant for that 15, 20 minutes that he was on the pitch. He was absolutely sensational. He's a real unsung hero from last night. From the moment he got on the pitch, he won a few tackles, and it was like, blimey, he looks up for this tonight. And he wins the ball back off McAllister, and John Duran slots it in beautifully into the bottom corner. 3-2 game on, and then within 2 minutes later, Diaby goes running through with the ball and clips it through to Duran. It just hits his knee and goes in, and the scenes in the whole end were fantastic. It was absolutely brilliant. And then there was a VAR check for handball, and everyone was like, oh my God, what's going on here? But it stood 3-3. Really important point. It means that obviously the game tonight that we don't know the result of yet, that everyone else at home does, means that Tottenham have to win both their games to finish above us. I think a point on Sunday, if they do win tonight, will probably be enough. But they are playing Sheffield United, who've got a goal difference of minus 60 something. They've conceded over 100 goals this year. So
yeah, I think they've conceded more goals than Derby did in the year that they finished on 11 points or something.
If we're hoping for a favour, it's going to come from Manchester City rather than Sheffield United. They've won 4 games all season, I think. Although you do always have on the opening day, Boxing Day, and the final day, there's always a few wacky results. We were part of the wacky result on the opening day. So you never know. The final day, maybe Sheffield United will rock up and win 5-0. Relegated Newcastle rocked up to Tottenham the year in 2016 and won 5-0. So anything is possible.
Bro, you've got Palace, haven't you, this weekend?
Palace away.
Quite a hard place to go.
Yeah, Palace have turned into Barcelona in the last couple of weeks. So
yeah, although there's been a few rumours about their manager and Bayern Munich and so on, which would be pretty mad. He's only just gone there, but may just ruffle a few feathers, may just destabilise things a little bit. But yeah, they've been in great form. So if you'd want to get it wrapped up tonight, ideally, because like you say, Man City is the most if you could be any team in the world to do your favour, it'd be them. Let's be honest.
But they've never scored a goal, let alone a league goal, let alone got a point at Tottenham's new stadium.
No, they did win there in the FA Cup this year, though.
They did, but they did lose there in the Champions League a few years ago.
Yes, they did.
They lost 1-0, and then they
lost.
Oh gosh,
that was the second leg, wasn't it? It was the mad game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh man, what a tie that was. That was a great year for the Champions League.
It was, yeah.
How confident are you on a general scale from 0 to 10? How confident are you that you're gonna?
The performance last night actually gives me a lot of confidence if we need to go and get a result against Palace, because it had looked like we were really just petering out. The result last night in the 3-3 means that we haven't lost back-to-back Premier League games this season, which is an incredible stat. We've broken so many stats and records. I think we've got the most wins we've ever had in a Premier League season, or it's tied with the very first Premier League season, but there was less games in that year. I think we've scored the most goals we've ever scored in a Premier League season. So the numbers we've done this year have been fantastic. And if we don't get over the line for Champions League, we don't get over the line. The Europa League is, nothing to turn your nose up at. And Annoyingly, next year's Champions League, Europa League, and Conference League formats, it's obviously the one year where there's no drop down. They've got rid
I
of
was
it
going to
now.
say, so is the Europa and the Conference League format staying the same?
No.
They're going into this weird thing as well.
Yes. So the Champions League, you play 8 games, 4 home, 4 away against 8 different teams. Same in the Europa League, but the Conference League is 6 games, not 8.
Right, right.
But there's no
I don't
drop
think
down.
that them getting rid of the drop down is a good. We talked about it on the podcast once actually. It's a good, in my opinion, it's a good thing on
Yeah.
the whole. But yeah, I can see why it'd be frustrating for you. Like it's quite typical that the year that it may actually come in handy for you is it
Yeah.
gets rid of. But
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Because this year Olympiacos got knocked out of the Europa League and dropped into the Conference League.
Yeah, true. That'd be an
So
interesting thing actually. Like I wonder how many winners have actually came from
it's
the
happened in
higher
the Europa
competition.
League quite a lot. Sevilla and Inter Milan have won it in the last few years where they've dropped down from the Champions League.
Yeah, did Chelsea drop down as well one year and then they won
Yeah,
it? I can't
when they
remember.
played Arsenal in the final in Baku.
Yeah. That rings a bell.
Atletico Madrid
Um,
dropped down and won it as well once, I think.
yeah,
So
yes, yeah. So I can see why that would be frustration, but one of those, isn't it?
it is what it is.
It's progress. It is progress for you either way. You're going to be in a higher level of competition than you
Yeah.
were this year in Europe, and you didn't win the Conference League anyway. So it's not like it's so it's but yeah, I'm sure you'd rather get into the Champions League though, of course, and
Yeah.
play the big boys there.
Yeah,
Um,
because with the new format as well, you're guaranteed 2 top seed teams, one home, one
yeah,
away. You can't play any of the English teams, so that's going to take your Man City and Arsenal probably out.
yeah, surely.
Oh, and Liverpool. Liverpool will be a high-seeded team as well, you'd expect with their coefficient. So they're gone. So you're looking at Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund, Barca. They might not be. They
PSG,
might
PSG.
PSG. Yeah, maybe not Barca. Maybe not Atleti. They might be second seed teams
Um,
now.
yeah,
It's all to do with coefficient, isn't it? So, but even
yeah.
still, like one of them home or what? I'm not being funny, Dad. If we get in the Champions League and have Real Madrid at home and Jude Bellingham scores at the whole end, I might never live it
Oh,
down.
I'm all for it. Oh, I would love that. If I could guarantee that that would happen, I'd be fine with Villa getting into the Champions League. If I could, I could see that now in front,
doing his like
in front of the
celebration.
whole end doing
Yeah,
the,
don't.
please, I would. That'd be my, it's my new, that'll be my screensaver in a year's time if that happens. Oh, thank you. You've just given me some comfort if Villa get in the Champions League. That might happen.
Honestly, that
Um,
image has been in my mind for about 6 months, so it's obviously going to happen. It's the most Aston
oh,
Villa thing to happen, isn't it?
oh, it'd be perfect. It'd be better than when Troy Deeney did it as well for Watford. Yeah, that would be amazing.
But yeah, in terms of a grade and match review, 3-word match review for Liverpool. On the brink of getting into the Champions League. Grade it an A, even though we were slightly sloppy defensively, and got to give man of the match to John Duran for his 2 goals. Callum Chambers, though, honourable mention. If that's the last time he plays at Villa Park, what a way to bow out. Genuinely, I'm very, very impressed. So yeah, that's the games.
Sweet. So moving on, obviously Blues didn't obviously haven't played this week. But we're going to get on a little bit later just to some of the reaction and what's happened in this week at Blues and so on. But first, just going to diverge slightly into a different part of the second city for a little bit in the West Midlands. Just going to talk a little bit about the Championship playoffs this year because obviously West Brom are in it this year. They played Southampton at home in the first leg on what day was it? Was it Sunday? And they have the reverse leg in a few days. So the drew 0-0, cagey game by the sound of things. Both playoff
Both of
semi-final
them,
first
yeah.
legs ended 0-0, which is pretty uncommon. Although I do appreciate it's maybe the second leg is normally where it really sparks into life. Cal, did you see any of the game, or have you seen any of the highlights? And what did you think on the whole?
I've seen the highlights, but I didn't catch either the game live. But I've heard I didn't
Sure.
miss much, and the highlights would seem to imply that as well. Some good goalkeeping on show, I would say. Though. There's
Mm,
some good saves out there. But yeah, I would say, well, maybe from a neutral point of view, the playoffs aren't actually that exciting this year. Just in terms of the teams that are involved, they're all teams that have been very much in the Premier League in the last, either been stalwarts in the Premier League for the last like few years, or tend to yo-yo like West Brom and Norwich. Um, but I would say they're 4 very evenly matched teams. I'd say it's probably one of the harder playoffs to maybe call across all four teams. You normally have maybe one or two favourites who you expect to be in the final, and probably Leeds are the favourites you would expect. Obviously, they finished third, but yeah, and I think the two matches showed how evenly matched these four teams are.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously even though it ended 0-0, I do think, and you never know with Leeds because they are obviously capable of throwing it away like they did in 2019.
Yeah,
But I do think the Baggies Southampton game is like the more interesting of the two.
yeah, yeah.
Um, like because Norwich, I know what you're saying. Like a lot of the teams that have been in the Premier League recently have got history there. But let's be honest, I don't think anyone wants to see Norwich go up again and just be really boring. Not I got nothing against Norwich, but like them, other than they, well, I suppose we
They
beat them
always
the last
go up,
day.
finish bottom, and
Exactly, and I
yeah.
think we'd rather see one of the other clubs go up. But I was speaking to James, who's been on the Second City podcast before on the Spotify version, just talking about he went to the games, big Baggies fan and friend of the podcast, and he was talking about it kind of seemed to be implying that there is a mentality at West Brom that they really know that they are the underdogs. For this tie, he was sort of saying how Corberan set the team up actually really well, and it was actually quite a solid shape. And the plan was, try and get them on the just take a couple of clear cut. You are going to get some clear cut chances, so try and take those when you get them, but you got to be clinical. And he said, kind of true to form this season, they haven't been that real clinical edge is actually something they've missed for a lot of this season, and is the reason they didn't finish even higher. So he says it's not a huge shock that they didn't have that in this playoff first leg.
Yeah, I mean
And I
they
think
got
he seemed,
to they got into the playoff spots. I think they got into around fifth place in December and then never moved until the end of the year.
yeah, yeah, oh no, absolutely. And I think you were saying as well, the away form this year has not been amazing, although it has got better as the season. Sort of the second half was better than the first half of the season in terms of away form. Although they did lose their last two away games, and obviously one of them was even against Sheffield Wednesday. But in 2024, their away form's actually been really good. I think he was saying he kind of expects in general the Southampton away game, Baggies are probably going to go for a similar thing of just really solid, tight defensively and try and catch them on the counter attack,
It's what they tried
which makes
against us in the
sense.
playoffs in 2019 as well. Actually, they
Yeah,
different eras, of course, but they definitely went very defensive in that, and it very nearly worked for them.
yeah, sure. And I think obviously Saints, I think Shay Adams is injured at the minute, but like obviously like, Adam Armstrong is one of the most prolific strikers in the league. Like I can see why they would approach it that way. And I thought Baggies would have a better season this year, but I didn't think they'd be in the playoffs. And I think there is a bit of a bit of a mentality thing. They know that they finished fifth for a reason, as opposed to obviously. So Norwich, who finished sixth, finished nearly 20 points behind Leeds. I think it was 17 points. So I can't really blame them teams for approaching it more solidly, and maybe that's why the first legs that were at their stadiums were cagier games. I wouldn't be shocked if we see the second legs kind of where it's do or die, but if we see them ties kind of explode a bit. But Cal, if you had to guess now, playoff final, who do you think it's going to be, and who do you think is going up?
Oh, I've kind of had a sneaky suspicion that West Brom would win the playoffs, just because maybe because they're the slight underdog, and they have been, well, they have been maybe they've been better than I expected them to be this year, but they haven't been as the levels of maybe your Southampton or your Leeds. The playoffs is just something different, and you know, there's something I just fancy them in the playoffs. But so I will tip them to beat Southampton. I mean, it'd be a bloody good win if they do beat Southampton away from home, and then you would expect Leeds to get past Norwich. I know that they have a history of bottling the playoffs, um, so I'd expect them. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's the obvious answer because they did finish third. I do think Leeds will
But I do
do
think
it.
all four teams, you look at the squads, and I would be worried about all of them in the Premier League next year.
Sure, but I mean, I don't know if that's a damning indictment on them necessarily, because like with this year, we saw the three teams that went up all came straight back down. Burnley got 101 points last season in
Yeah.
the Championship, and they got 26 in the Premier League this year.
They did sign
I think
about
it
50
was.
players, though.
True, true, but it's mad that a team
Yeah.
can blitz the Championship like that and struggle so much when they come up. But yeah, we'll keep an eye out. West Brom, Southampton, second leg's coming up this week. I wouldn't be shocked if West Brom just edged past them and maybe the occasion just got to Southampton a bit. I think Baggies have been again, different sets of players and so on, but they've been in this position so many times before. They've done the playoffs so many times. They're a club that just knows how to get through it weirdly. And although they haven't been to a playoff final since 2007, I was reading, which feels like a really long time ago, actually.
Yeah, they've had a
Considering their
habit of
track
going up
record.
automatically, haven't they?
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. And they've been in the playoffs at all since the year you played them, which was 5 years ago. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on that one, and I'm sure we'll catch up on that at some point. Elsewhere, other teams, Solihull Moors, we touched on them last week because they were at Wembley. They were in in their game at Wembley last week, they drew 2-2 and then lost on penalties. This
they
week
they
they went to
completed
Wembley
a
again.
they completed a historic double for all the wrong
Yes.
reasons.
Yeah, they also went to Wembley this week, drew 2-2, and then lost on penalties, which must have been really annoying. So last week was in the National League playoff final, so that was their huge opportunity to get up to League Two into the Football League for their first time in their history, which for a club founded in 2007 would have been an absolutely extraordinary achievement. But this week they were in the FA Trophy final, so all gets a bit confusing with the EFL Cup and the EFL Trophy, and then the
Trophy,
FA Trophy.
the FA
FA
Vase.
Trophy's yeah, the FA Vase. Uh, Mushroom Cup, the
Yeah.
whatever it is. I think so the FA Trophy is basically the League Cup, but for non-league teams, right? That's basically
Well, it'd
it.
be the FA Cup, wouldn't it?
I guess,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
But
because they're not.
you can get non-league teams in the FA Cup.
Yeah, obviously
Anyway,
the
whatever.
League Cup is for EFL. Oh, this is
Yeah, it's a
confusing.
knockout cup competition for the teams below League Two, basically.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, they played Gateshead at Wembley in front of 20,000 people, which for obviously for Solihull Moors, it must have been pretty damn cool. But yeah, they were kind of unfortunate because they pulled it back to 1-1 after going 1-0 down and then went 2-1 up in extra time and then conceded another goal, drew 2-2 and then lost on penalties. And apparently it was a lot of the same players that took the penalties again. So that must be like a real like mental challenge for you. So must be like a really disappointing end to the season for Solihull Moors. But to get to the playoff semi-final of your league and to be within touching distance of getting to League Two and then to be within like touching distance of the first trophy in your history. Like I think they've won like the Birmingham Senior Cup and they've won like the National League North and stuff from my research. But you know, their first actual like trophy this would have been basically. Um would have been a really good great honor for them. But not to be, but they've had a really great season on the whole and be interesting to see if they can go that one step further and either win the FA Trophy or I'm sure their goal will be getting into League Two next year again because that'd be a huge achievement for them. But interestingly, Gateshead, they were actually meant to play them in the playoffs.
yeah. This
Uh,
this is wild.
yeah, so it was something to do with Solihull Moors finished fifth, Gateshead finished sixth, but Gateshead were banned from the playoffs
Yeah,
because of something to do with the stadium.
so the stadium wasn't up to EFL spec. So a little bit
Mm.
like so the stadium's got to be it's got to meet certain criteria to be allowed into the EFL. And Gateshead Stadium to get into the away end, like you had to walk through like the playground of a primary school or something.
Oh God.
Like it was like it was like when you it's obviously really harsh and it's a really bad reason. Not in terms of like it's a heartbreaking reason because nothing that the playing staff can do about it to stop them being an EFL club. And it's if it was in the FA Cup, you'd say the magic of the cup. But
Sure.
I
Well,
suppose like you know you've got some relatively like decent sized clubs in League Two. You kind of can't be having your away fans walking through
no,
like
of course.
playgrounds to get into the stadium and things like that. So
Of course.
I do understand it, but a lot of it comes from the counts. I think there's a lot of politics involved. The council haven't allowed helped them improve the stadium as the team has improved, sort of thing. So, but it is heartbreaking for anyone involved with Gateshead.
Yeah, sure. But they've won the FA Trophy to make up for it. So yeah, unlucky to Solihull Moors, but we'll see what happens next season with them.
On to the housekeeping then.
Yes,
Oh
so this is
yeah,
going to
have you got
be
some this week? Because I've definitely got some.
yeah. Well, I mean, obviously Blues didn't play this week, so it's going to be kind of like the sort of Blues section of the episode, I guess, as well. Where I just talk about what's happened this week as well. But did you want to start with the Villa stuff or with the Blues stuff, Cal?
We've done a lot of Villa already, so
Yeah, sure.
I'll bundle it in with final game.
Cool. Yeah, no worries. So obviously it's been just over a week now since Blues were relegated to League One.
Has
Weirdly,
it
like
has it sunk
my
in yet?
yeah, it actually has, and it has. I think the club released like important dates article, basically, like, saying fixtures come out this day, yada yada yada. And it was like the moment it really sunk in was like it was like fixture release date this day, league season starts this day, and then it was like the Bristol Street Motors Trophy begins in September, and I was like, oh my God, this is happening. This is like there's no going back. It's real. It's really happening. But
Just
yeah,
just imagine if you get the Aston Villa under 23s.
I see. The weird thing is the EFL Trophy or the Street Motors Trophy. I'm weirdly like I'll probably still go to the games, like,
Yeah, it'd be
probably play
fun.
some league, yeah, play some like League Two teams that I've never like seen before. Like I've worked it out as well. I think I've been to at least one Blues game against every Premier League and Championship team except Man City. Weirdly, I don't know why that is. But there's some teams I've been to Blues like Nottingham Forest, Blues Bristol City, Blues
Yeah,
Hull City. How many times? I must have been to them games like
yeah,
at least 10 times each, or getting to it anyway. So, seeing some new teams play, it'll be cool for a little bit, hopefully only for a year. But yeah, the under 23s is where I kind of draw the line. I
yeah.
think,
They shouldn't be
like,
in that competition at all.
no, it devalues it. It's like if you in the Conference League, if they went, oh, and we're going to put PSG, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Man City's under 23s in that as well,
Yeah,
you'd be like, no, 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 that's not like, um, but yeah, no, so still no major news otherwise come out really. Obviously, there's been no concrete news on Mowbray. Been a few rumors. Is he coming back? But I don't want to get too into that because we don't. It
mm.
is like a medical situation. We don't know too much. And there's been kind of no statement from the club. So
That
yeah, I don't want
needs
to get too into that.
resolving quickly though. But
Yeah,
not,
exactly. Yeah,
there's obviously a bit of leeway with that, but obviously, you know, you want to start preparing for the new year as early as you can. Your pre-season's going to start 1st of July, you know.
yeah. No, absolutely. I completely agree. But I don't want to speculate about like Mowbray's position as I'm sure people know what I mean. Like obviously you try and be somewhat sensitive, but I do agree we do need to before too long we'll find out what's going on, I'm sure. But I didn't really touch much actually last week on Gary Rowett. Obviously he was the manager for the last 8 games of the Blues season. And there'd been like, a bit of speculation. Will he end up being the Blues manager next season if circumstance calls for it and so on. But he put a statement out on his Instagram just a couple of days ago, actually. And I thought it was quite a nice statement, sort of saying, it was obviously really disappointing for him and for the club to go down, but he believed the future was really bright. And I just kind of forgot to say it last week, basically. I think it basically sounded on the statement like Rowett saying, oh, that's my job done here. And the club actually did put out a statement probably a couple of weeks ago saying that as much, said like he's here for this period whilst Tony Mowbray's away. Um, uh, Rowett, I have a lot of great memories of Rowett, and when I was like 18 years old, and he was the Blues manager, and we were smashing it, and it looked like he was going to be the man to take us to the Premier League. I have a lot of fun memories, and the improvement under Rowett from a couple of years before that back then was huge, and so for him to come back was a really full circle moment and a really great moment that he got to have another go with Blues. I do think it's just a huge shame he was there when we got relegated. It's not, he isn't the man who relegated us. Like,
No, I mean, we'll touch on this a bit more in the season review, I think, but
yeah,
I think the main problem was he didn't go in early enough.
yeah, yeah, sure, absolutely. And like you said, we'll get onto that. But yeah, I think it's a huge shame it ended this way for him, and it kind of looks like that will be that for him at Blues. I think there's some things I look back on, like he definitely should have gone for it in the Huddersfield or the Rotherham game more, absolutely. But his points per game, and his record, he got more wins in his 8 games than Rooney got in his 15. Like, and so he's not the reason we went down. Let's be honest. But another thing we're still waiting for to come out of Blues very soon is the out of contract players situation. So Blues have got 8 players out of contract this summer. And there's been a lot of talk about should we retain or release them. So some of them we got a year option on, I believe. Certainly one of them we have. And I just wanted to give my quick thoughts on whether these players should be sticking around or not. Again, obviously, it's all relative to the managerial situation. Obviously, if Tony Mowbray does come back, it'll probably be different to if Gary Rowett had stayed or if another manager comes in and so on.
And wages and
Um,
things.
yeah, exactly. And obviously, now that we've gone down, the conversation is really different because I think a lot of people still assumed this conversation was if we're in the Championship next year until very recently. But yeah, so the players we got out of contract, we got 8 of them, as I say. These are Mark Roberts, Ivan Sunjic, Neil Etheridge, John Ruddy, Gary Gardner, Keshi Anderson, Scott Hogan, and Lucas Jukovic. So some of them players have been with us for a really long time. Mark Roberts has been with us since 2017. I personally think Roberts, Sunjic, Etheridge, Gardner, Hogan. I think it's probably time to move on. I think Mark Roberts could do a job in League One. He's obviously had success there before. He's been there a long time, but I think it's just time for a fresh start. And if we're gonna build this philosophy of like, say if Mowbray does come back, which hopefully he does, of course, you look at like what Ipswich did, where they went down to League One, and with Kieran McKenna, eventually they were able to like really implement that philosophy there of like that possession-based style of play and a more progressive style of play, and how that foundation in League One was what allowed them to be where they are now as they go up to the Premier League. If Blues are looking to try and do something similar, it has to kind of start now. And I look at Neil Etheridge and Mark Roberts, and they're not, they're not that type of player. They're not particularly good with their feet. They're not ball play. He's not a ball playing defender. So no, I think them two maybe move on. Same with Ivan Sunjic in midfield. I will never forget him crying when he scored his last goal against Coventry. I think I've got a soft spot for him. I think he's been he's works 110%, but I do think it's time for him to maybe move on. Obviously, he had a few rough spells, but I hope he gets a good move somewhere else and is able to make a success of it. He's still young, and I'm sure he could get a good move in him if his agent does the business for him. Gary Gardner, for the same reasons. I appreciate he's an older player and maybe a bit of experience, but I do think maybe time to move him on. But I wouldn't be like, I'd understand the logic if they did keep him, a bit more of an experienced head in that midfield, but so I wouldn't be rapidly against it, but I do think it's probably time to move him on as well. In terms of the ones that I think we should maybe keep, so we got two keepers leaving, obviously with Ruddy and Etheridge, unless something changes. And despite everything I just said, getting two goalkeepers into League One is a huge ask. Two good goalkeepers. So I would not mind us keeping one of them as the backup, as the number two, if they wanted to. But I don't know how feasible that is. They're probably on decent enough money and could probably get a decent move somewhere else where they might get played a bit more, especially John Ruddy, who has had 2 good years at Blues. I'd probably put Ruddy over Etheridge. I think he's just a bit more consistent. Obviously, I think he was a bright spot of these last 2 years. So I wouldn't be against keeping one of them maybe as the backup. We have a year option on Keshi Anderson. I personally, despite his injury record, would absolutely keep him. I think he's when he's fit and playing, I think he's a really promising player, and he proved it in League One with Blackpool. I think if he's not a lower end Championship player, he's definitely a high end Premier player, high end League One player. So I would definitely want him to stay. And then the other one, obviously Duke, Lucas Jukovic. 8 years he's been with us. So 2016 he signed for us. And I know I just said all this stuff about like progressive style of play and possession based play and so on.
You'd
Obviously,
give him a
Duke is not that.
lifetime contract anyway.
I would, but also like with the goalkeeper thing. So our 3 main strikers this year: Stansfield, Hogan, Duke. Obviously, Stansfield was alone, and Hogan and Duke are out of contract. So we've got no strikers going into this season apart from kind of Tyler Roberts, I guess. So I think keeping one of them, obviously it's not going to be Stansfield. If we can keep Duke, he is the club captain. He gives us someone else. He's a plan B up front. If we need him, he's still got goals in him. I think in League One, I do honestly think he'd be able to do a job for us. And I think when he's on the pitch, I think standards are higher. I think player accountability is higher. I think he's a leader. We haven't had enough of them this year, and so I think getting rid of our best leader, as we really need them, as we hopefully go for promotion next year, I think we absolutely should give him another year. And yeah, as I say, he doesn't have to be the starting striker. He's not going to be. He's 35 years old, I think, so he's not going to be. But yeah, I would absolutely give him a new deal. I think he could still score goals for us in this league. And I saw when Sheffield Wednesday got promoted last season, when they won the playoffs in the 120th minute, they scored a diving header in front of their own fans at Wembley to win the playoffs. And I was like, I'd much rather Duke go out with something like that than with a relegation to League One. He deserves better than that. So yeah, I would keep Duke, Anderson, and I wouldn't be against keeping one of the keepers. But I'd understand if we didn't. And obviously the other one, Hogan, is probably the biggest no-brainer on the list. I think it's definitely time to move on. I'm sure we'll react to this when the actual announcement comes out, but uh, he's had a really poor season at Blues. I kind of feel like something's just not quite right there. Maybe done, with himself, and if so, that's okay. Players have lives and they have things going on. So, um, and just on the pitch as well, he scored one goal in the league and one in the cup this year. He's had some great moments at Blues, like his hat trick at West Brom a couple of years ago was absolutely amazing. But yeah, I think it's time to move on. I think the fans are. I think he's kind of at that point now where he's not going to win the fans back. Yeah, I think it might be best for both parties for him to move on. But so yeah, some of them I'll see leave and I'll wish them well. But yeah, I think they're the ones I would definitely keep. So yeah, that's the housekeeping on my end with Blues.
Then on the Villa side, we had a rare interview from the CEO of football operations, Chris Heck, basically. And these are kind of the highlights. So he was interviewed by none other than TalkSport's finest Gabby Agbonlahor, for Villa TV. And so these are kind of the main takeaways that I took from the 16-minute interview. It's worth a watch if you haven't. So Chris Heck kind of reiterated Nassif Sawiris and Wes Edens, the two kind of co-owners, about their ambitions, and they've got their eyes fully set on the top, but that the business side of Aston Villa needs to follow the upward trend, that the playing side is to kind of continue to support the playing staff, and the main focus to help that is on sponsorship. So that's the kit manufacturer and the two shirt sponsors, so the sleeve sponsor and the front of kit sponsor. So we've announced Betano as the front of shirt sponsor. We've all but announced, well, we even have we've fake leaked it, the Adidas thing now, but they can't officially announce that until at least the end of the season. I would imagine the 1st of July is when that'll get announced, just because that's when the contracts tend to have a termination date. And then we'll see on the sleeve sponsor next year. FFP is obviously a factor, and the club's focus is to try and keep on top of it. Season ticket prices. So I saw a couple of rumors about a week or two ago that season ticket prices could be going up as high as 20%. They obviously haven't announced the season ticket prices yet, probably because they're waiting to see what European competition we might be playing in. But Chris Heck said that they would probably go up by about 5%. And that's thanks to the Betano sponsorship, the Adidas kit making. Those new revenue streams are limiting the price rises, but I guess we'll wait for an official announcement on that. Right. There was also no changes to the Holt, other than rail seating, and some new seats are going to go in. Obviously, the terrace view, I spoke about that earlier on this year, very controversial. And I wonder if we'll see that not scrapped, but certainly reimagined going into the new year. But that's something that's just a feeling, more than anything else. We spoke last week about, especially off the back of Birmingham City's news about their hopeful Wheels Park Stadium and that. So there is no planned move away from Villa Park. Chris Heck even went as far to say is not in my lifetime. But it does need some uplift in a few areas. So the next 2 summers, they're going to change all the seats. I think he said LEDs are going to go around, some new lights probably. And there's going to be a focus on reimagining premium seating, because obviously the Premier League's brand, you get a lot of international fans in, especially fans from America. They don't want your traditional pie and pint and sit in the Doug Ellis. They want, like an NFL
A
style
gourmet
experience.
experience.
Yeah, they want a gourmet burger and some popcorn and a craft beer in a nice lounge, and then go and sit in a padded seat, not stood up with your working class people belting.
Someone spit raining
Yeah,
down.
or someone sneakily
Yeah.
vaping, trying to not
Oh,
get caught by the stewards and things
that's
like
a
that.
day. That's a discussion for another day. But it blows my. I swear to God, I don't know if you've. Sorry, getting sidetracked here. But
Yeah.
when someone vapes next to you and it's just blowing in your direction for the whole game, I don't know about you. That does my head in. But that's
I don't
just
mind it
my
as much
opinion
as
on it.
smoking. Cigarette smoke,
Sure, I
really, I
guess.
don't get on with. But at least it
I just think
smells
it's
like straw jelly beans or
I
something.
guess. But I was at Leicester away, and there was a guy 3 seats down from me, and all game it was just blowing at us. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, discussion for
But
another day.
it is, yeah. We already spoke about the new the Villa Village store that is now closed. They closed it after the full time yesterday, so there's like a warehouse on the back of it where they keep all the stock. They're knocking that out, and the store's going to be double the size. They are planning to add something on the site of Villa Park. I think it's the old Academy building, which there was going to be this Villa Live, and now it's going to be like this warehouse thing. They're basically trying to turn it into some sort of mini concert venue for pre and post game entertainment, and try and make Villa Park a bit of an entertainment centre, while also trying to improve the train service, and they've also got the shuttle bus service going now. So interesting stuff going on. Obviously, at least it finally puts to bed these sort of like Twitter rumours of we're moving away from Villa Park, because Villa Park is one of the, it's one of the most unique stadiums. We're losing a lot of our unique historical stadiums, and it's been looked after. It's not, like we said before, like St Andrews, which hasn't been looked after, and which is why Birmingham City need a new stadium more than anything. So that's good stuff. And rail seating, get the rail seating in. I know there's issues how there's got to be I think it's two non-rail seats for every one rail seating, so you can't put rail seating everywhere, because obviously you need like your accessibility parts of the ground. But yeah, that's the housekeeping.
Cool. Let's move on then to previewing obviously last game of the season this week. Again, obviously Blues, we don't have a game to preview this week. We'll keep tabs on West Brom Southampton, but obviously for you, Cal, the big one is Villa at West Ham. Although you'll be hoping,
Crystal
Crystal
Palace.
Palace, I should say. But West Ham, where did that come from? But you'll be hoping that it isn't a big game. Obviously, hopefully.
Yeah, it's always nice having something to play for in the run-in, even if it's fighting relegation. It's always nice to have an exciting end to the season, really. But I'd quite enjoy a final day dead rubber. That would be quite nice. It's quite hard to preview without knowing what's happened in the Spurs game. So um, I think if it is confirmed that we're in the Champions League, I think we'll probably take the opportunity to rest a couple of players. They played a lot of games. I know we haven't got a Conference League final to look ahead at now, but I think it would make sense at this point, especially with some of the injuries. But if we do have something to play for, I think we will treat it like a cup final, and I think we'll be very pragmatic, and I think it could make a really interesting game, especially with how Crystal Palace have completely changed their identity in the last like 2 months under Oliver Glasner. So it could be a really good game. Eze and Elise, and Jean-Philippe Mateta are all in great form. Adam Wharton, who they signed in January, has been an excellent buy and an outside shot for the Euros, possibly. Definitely the England's long-term solution to Jordan Henderson, you would think. So yeah, I mean, if we've got nothing to play for, then I wouldn't be too surprised if we lost. But I will probably predict a draw. I think that's a safe middle ground without knowing the context of the game yet. So we'll go for maybe we'll go for a wacky final day 3-3 or something, It's always crazy results on the final day. We were part of a crazy result on the opening day. Maybe we will on the final day.
That would be a hell of a way to go out for sure. Cool. So, should we wrap it up there, Cal?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you'll hear from us next week at the usual time.
Yes.
So I think the next time you'll hear from us will hopefully be 2022-2023 season review. So we're going to try and get in person for the big review. But in the meantime, thank you for all the subscribers, the likes, the comments. We try and reply to as many of them as we can. If you write shit on the Villa or shit on Birmingham City, we're probably not going to respond to it, but we do see them.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we need some blue. Like we had a nice comment from a Blues fan the other day. Said she really enjoyed it. But yeah, man, it's more Blues fans, man. Come on, get in the comments, man. Where are you guys?
Yeah.
Back me up here. And not just Blues and Villa as well. Anyone who's enjoying the podcast, we'd love to hear from you as well. But yeah.
Yeah. And the next goal for us, at least on YouTube side, is 500 subscribers. That's the next big target. We're almost at 250, so that's our next goal, is 500. Subscribe, 5-star reviews if you're on Spotify, and yeah, I'll see you in a week and a half, 2 weeks down. I don't know what it'll be, but until
Yeah,
then,
hopefully not too long. I think it's we're just just trying to work out some dates and stuff, and we're gonna do it and so on. But yeah.
yeah. So
Sweet.
until then, Dan, I'll see you next time and up the Villa.
See you next time, Cal. Shit on the Villa. Keep right on. See you then.